Obviously, there's a lot of spoilers. Don't complain about it.
How was your day?
It was pretty cool. I was reading that book about the galaxy.
That big, thick one?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
What's your favorite planet?
Jupiter. Yeah, no doubt.
Jupiter. How come?
Well, because the surface of his atmosphere is a storm that's been raging for like 1,000 years. And the eye of that hurricane's so huge that it could just swallow the whole Earth. Yeah, that's why it's my favorite planet.
That's wild.
What's yours?
Saturn, probably.
Yeah. Saturn's pretty cool. And that was one of the first ones that we discovered, that humans discovered, so there's like a lot of cool ancient myths about it and stuff.
I changed my mind.
What?
I like Galactus.
Galactus isn't a planet.
Yeah, but he eats planets.
Welcome, everyone, to Video Games Are the Worst Thing on Earth, Nerd Movie Club edition. With me, as always, is Alton.
Cheddar goblin.
And our beloved guest, Misandry, joining us for a third time.
Hell yeah, getting them frequent collaborator credits.
That's what we call them. And I am hosting this time because we are talking about a movie.
Reese, what is a movie?
A movie is a really long YouTube video essay that's fictional.
Oh. Do you get recommendations of like white nationalist movies to watch afterwards?
They come before the movie, actually.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, the movie we are discussing today is Mandy. Even though it's a movie and not about video games, I still think it fits within the wheelhouse of the podcast, because even if it's not directly referencing games, the director talked about he really wanted to avoid a lot of influence from other stuff. But the one thing he did read a lot of are D&D modules.
Nice.
Because he said he wanted it to be like a fantasy barbarian story. So it's not directly obvious, but this is a gamer movie, and in a good way, because it's tabletop, not video games. So.
It has capital T themes.
Mandy, I thought, was an extremely strange sequel / prequel, maybe, to Matilda.
You're trying to put it on the chronology, which is the problem. This is happening at the same time, and it's in fact the exact same game.
Oh my god, it's in the same universe. Oh.
And also, while it's not necessarily overtly political, and I don't think the director has a coherent ideology, but he fucking hates Ronald Reagan. In all the interviews, he talks about how much he hates like fascists and Nazis, etc. And so I think that's still within our political wheelhouse.
The politics of this movie are sort of given context if you watch the previous movie, Beyond the Black Rainbow.
I think Mandy is super engaging despite the long, slow parts. Beyond the Black Rainbow, which I loved, but it is just 100% mood and does not give a shit about the story. So it's a little more challenging.
And I didn't watch it because I'm lazy. Making me watch one movie is like trying to pull teeth, as Reese will attest to.
I would like to contend that although it is narratively sparse, Beyond the Black Rainbow has a big recurring theme throughout all of it, and that is the corruption of spirituality and religious fervor. Or not fervor, but like experimentation by the sort of wild child era of the 60s, eventually turning into the sort of corporatized and overall cult-like mentality that you saw happen with the facility and Beyond the Black Rainbow.
I do want to talk about Beyond the Black Rainbow a little bit, but I kind of want to pump the brakes until we get to the end. It's better discussed in the context of Mandy.
It is. It's not a movie to watch on its own, to be perfectly honest. I love it, but it is thin.
So just personally, Mandy is one of my favorite movies of the past couple years. I like that how kind of crowd pleasing the like revenge stuff is, like the chainsaw battle and all that, but it doesn't make it easy for you. Like so much of it is kind of like the slow buildup of the love story between Mandy and Red. And then even when he's doing his kind of like chainsaw battle stuff, he's not speaking at any point in that movie until the very end. It's very weird and going in its own unique direction. And that's kind of why I was compelled by it.
Well, I just wanted to interject that there is a point where he stops speaking, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it would be fair to say that this has mystical elements to it, and the film goes out of its way not to clarify if they're real or not.
Under the crimson, primordial sky, surrounded by the jagged rocks of the ancient volcanic mountain, the wretched warlock reached into the dark embrace of the fissure until his hand touched a smooth, glassy surface, cold as ice. His fist closed around the serpent's eye. Slowly he withdrew it and held it before him in the fading light of the blood-red suns. It glowed from within, a ghostly emerald light. Strange and eternal.
This movie I would call a very good example of magical realism.
Mm-hmm.
In which magical realism is kind of a buzzword amongst the more I don't want to say intellectual because I'm a dumbass, but it's a bit of a buzzword amongst the
pretentious dumbasses.
Yes, pretentious dumbasses like myself.
Before we delve too deep into it, I wanted to get your general impressions. Alton, I'm curious of whether you actually liked the movie or not. You seem to be entertained by some elements. And I know, Misandry, I know you love it, but what does it mean to you?
I enjoyed the movie because I love Nicolas Cage as an actor. I like it when he's in good movies. I like it when he's in bad movies. And every time Nicolas Cage does anything, it is simultaneously compelling and hilarious to me. And so watching him fight with disgusting LSD bikers and chainsaw duel with people was honestly a really good treat, and I think that the revenge portions of this movie are very satisfying, I would say. It's one of those movies, I think, if you can get past the initial build-up, it would appeal to people who aren't great big dorks who studied film theory.
I am a great big dork who did not study film theory.
Self-taught.
I am both. I'm both. I went to film school.
Mm-hmm.
I was a dork before then, and man, it was a lot worse after.
You became a double dork.
Double dork.
Triple dork at least.
Reese, triple dork. So that's my take on it. It is fun. It is enjoyable. It is psychedelic. The visuals are all extremely good. The film grain gives it a unique quality. I don't even know if they shot this on film, but like everything looks like it was.
I'm not 100%, to be honest. I know Beyond the Black Rainbow was.
I mean, this is probably shot on film, given how, like, you can definitely tell, like, the film has, like, a granularity to it.
Yeah. And it doesn't have that fakeness that a lot of times they try to insert in.
Yeah. It looks like something that was shot in the 80s, but, like, really high quality. What did you think about the film, Misandry?
I adored it. It combined a lot of things that I look for in a lot of media. Those a lot of things are heavy metal, hatred of baby boomers, hatred of Ronald Reagan,
hatred of hippies.
Oh God, yeah, hatred of hippies
Mhm.
Fucking hippies.
Yeah, fuck hippies. Commentary on the sort of relationships of all these three, but done with a backdrop of hyper-violence. It does a very good job of, I guess, mingling cerebral and visceral. Also, Cheddar Goblin.
Cheddar Goblin.
Yeah, tough not to love Cheddar Goblin.
Reese doesn't actually like Cheddar Goblin. He told me.
Wow.
I just felt that in the second rewatch, I was a lot more accepting of Cheddar Goblin, but at the time, I was just like, what the fuck is this? And I embrace it as part of the weirdness of it, but I felt it was a little.
I think it's great.
Bit of his insert goof. I mean, I'm just being, a nitpicky dipshit in that moment.
See, Cheddar Goblin came off to me, given its place in the film, or given how it exists within this film, it came off to me more like a Videodrome-like criticism of consumer culture.
I would say that that's potentially true. I think that there was an element of that. To me, it seems like it takes a back seat to sort of like the inherent absurdity of just continuing to live after you've experienced a horrific tragedy. We're jumping ahead a little bit because, that's just after they like sacrifice his girlfriend. And he walks back into the house and just fucking Cheddar Goblin's playing on TV. And, you can imagine that actually happening. Like, nothing about the world gives a shit about you or what's just happened to you. And so you just are sort of living in this dream world where absurd fucking things are happening on the TV, even though you've just like saw someone you love die.
The commercials never stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think any commercial after that kind of horrific moment would feel like Cheddar Goblin. So I think that's a good point.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you had like a loved one or a relative die and you just like saw fucking Lucky Charms on the TV after you got like the phone call, you'd just be like living in some sort of absurd fantasy world.
Cheddar Goblin, did you eat all the macaroni and cheese?
Nothing's better than cheddar.
Cheddar Goblin.
So since we're starting to dig into it, it's a very basic story. It's a revenge movie. But instead of the revenge tone being all about the dude who's doing the revenge, it has the essence of the person that's being avenged. And it's all about how Nicolas Cage, for kind of very mysterious reasons, was this kind of empty, awful person. And his connection with Mandy made him more real. And, you see throughout the movie how enchanted he is with her art.
by empty, awful person, Reese means he was a lumberjack. Fuck you, lumberjacks, you bitches.
Have you met any lumberjacks? Come on.
I haven't, actually.
No, but
I have.
They're all like Nicolas Cage and Mandy.
He was addicted to speed.
That's appropriate.
Well, not only him being a lumberjack, but there's a lot of sense that he doesn't really come alive until he's with Mandy and defined by her. And I think that makes the movie so interesting is when you get to the revenge portions, the stuff that we saw before that in the first half of the movie is informing that. I would say part of the mysticism of the Skull Gang and the, fucked up alien like lights on the artifacts and stuff like that. To me, it's a question of whether that's real or whether that's how Mandy looks through her life. Because if at the start of the movie, she talks about kind of myths and legends in that one scene.
Just talking about a book she's reading about this like sci-fi fantasy author that's like directly referenced later in the film.
Exactly. And, I think the first line is under the crimson primordial sky. And then there's that shot kind of like close to the end of the movie where Nicolas Cage is driving under a similar sky. And so I think a lot of it's difficult to say none of it was real.
Oh, film relationships always come off to me as forced. The dialogue is generally unnatural and like this sort of Joss Whedon-esque quippy. But the conversations between Red and Mandy, they genuinely feel like just conversations between people.
Really awkward, stilted conversations between two complete weirdos
who are totally in love.
Yes. It's stilted as hell. Like, I wanted to bring up how nobody in this movie, with like the exception of a couple minor side characters, are conventionally attractive. Like, the two main characters are just like weird looking people. I mean, Nic Cage, for one, is just like this scraggly looking motherfucker. He sells the idea that he is a man of the forest, who plies his trade chopping down big old trees.
I'm going to have to disagree in that I think Andrea Riseborough is conventionally beautiful. They just kind of lean into the kind of like a no makeup, very stripped down look for her, for Mandy. That it's part of their characters that they're purposefully, separating themselves from the world. Mandy has that fucked up scar that, tells a story of its own.
And they live in a house made of windows.
That house is terrifying.
The fucking house. The insulation costs on that thing must be a bitch.
Mandy doesn't have a ton of screen time, but I think the time that she does have, even in the kind of stilted conversations, it's very real. And there's two clearly very damaged people. The one scene I want to talk about with Mandy, she's telling the story about her dad having everybody kill all of those birds.
Oh my God.
And it's clearly just like out of nowhere, your partner just dropping in their origin story of why everything is fucked up with them. And it's clear that that's like the inciting incident for what has upset her so much about the world. And I would argue why she sees the world in these kind of fantastical, larger than life, evil imagery that is transferred to Nicolas Cage in his revenge quest.
I don't know. I didn't really get that much of an impression of her character. I think the more you read into films like this, the more you get out of it. Just on a sort of first time viewing, because I only watched the movie once, you get the impression that this is somebody who's just sort of like kind of weird. You definitely do get the sense that, they are both very strange, broken people who find comfort in each other's company. So I would agree with that read of the film. To me, it's just like she does lots and lots of art, and she reads a lot of weird sci-fi fantasy, like not just fantasy, not just sci-fi, like space fantasy.
It definitely leans a lot more into the era that it is set in.
The director talks about one of the sparks for this and Beyond the Black Rainbow is when he was a kid, he wasn't allowed to rent horror movies, but wander around the video store horror section and look at the covers. And he wanted to make a movie that felt like those 80s covers did.
So let's talk about the turn this movie takes. So we have like the slow build up, like the first 30 fucking minutes or so are like completely dedicated to them like having very quiet conversations, and you get to know these characters a little bit better. She wanders out the woods to look at a dead Bambi.
That is a fucked up scene. The practical effects in this movie, top notch.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's very gross to look at, and I was not a fan of looking at the gross dead deer at 1 o'clock in the morning, because I wasn't sure if they were going to make it like do a jump scare or something, because I thought it was just going to be like, Brah! but it's not that kind of movie. But there's a turn in this movie when she goes out for a walk down this side road. We don't really know where it is, but just like this dirt road out in the middle of nowhere. She's going for a walk, and then along comes this van, and the entire film just turns completely red.
Well, it's the introduction of the demonic force. Jeremiah, one of the greatest dipshits in cinematic history.
What's the matter, Jeremiah? Are you all right?
No. I'm not all right.
Did I do something wrong?
Wrong? Everything you do is wrong.
I'm so sorry, Jeremiah. Is there anything I can do to make you feel better?
There is nothing you can do. It's her. I feel naked without her. Naked. Do you hear me? I said, do you hear me?
Yes, Jeremiah, I hear you.
Yes, Jeremiah, I hear you. Really? Because sometimes I don't think you hear anything at all. And I am truly worried about that. If you are not with me, you will not ascend.
Jeremiah.
Please, just be quiet and go fetch me Brother Swan.
A fail son for the ages.
Which, huge props to Linus Roach for selling that performance.
It really is such a selfless performance because he is so fucking pathetic in that movie in a way that is all right. Well, we're going to talk about Jeremiah since Alton brought it up. This is almost an expression, I would say, of just like total rage at the systems of control. People say like there's a Charlie Manson vibe, and that's true. But it almost feels like it's going in a slightly different, more bougie direction it's clear Jeremiah used to have money from the way he dresses and acts.
If I may, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said I feel like that Beyond the Black Rainbow will give context to a lot of the commentary that'd be happening in this, specifically the degradation of the ideal of the wild child.
Absolutely.
So, the Institute, Beyond the Black Rainbow, Jeremiah Sand in this movie, the cult that he has, it is all feeding into that worldview that Panos Cosmatos clearly has.
You know what Jesus' big mistake was? Huh? He didn't offer up a sacrifice instead. The cruciform is a constant reminder of that.
I wrote down a quote here from him that I thought was just such a hilarious, like, dipshit narcissist thing to say. He says after he is talking to Nicolas Cage about how much better he is than him, he says, you know what Jesus' big mistake was? He didn't offer up someone else as a sacrifice instead. And I'm just like, listen, I'm not here to like support Christianity and Jesus shit, but like you didn't get that story, bud. Like that's not the point. It's just you being like, I want to be worshipped, and this is easy to talk about, but I want to offer up the fat kid to be sacrificed instead of myself.
Yeah, he also said that like he wears like a crucifix, and there's some Christianity symbols in here, but like he says that he wears it to remind himself of like the mistake Jesus made. He's just like, yeah, I wear it to remind myself about how Jesus. He sounds like George Bush Jr., I guess. About how Jesus should have sacrificed somebody else.
Reese, you have more of a film background than I do, i.e. any. So maybe you can like chime in on this. But I feel like that the way that they focus on the shots of Jeremiah Sand and like in things involving him and his focuses, the way that they are all extremely long shots, I think it's trying to hammer home a point of like, dude's a solipsist. He is completely, so completely absorbed by his own narcissism that he is sort of apotheotic. There's something about the tone of this movie. It makes me think like a structure similar to like a Dante's Journey Through Hell in The Divine Comedy, or Orpheus through the underworld, but in reverse perspective.
I think absolutely true, and I think he's specifically talking about Christians in America and about how you could pick and choose and find decent ones, but all these big name ones are narcissists. They bend this stuff that other people believe in to their own devices to get what they want, and like all he wants is to fuck chicks and be worshipped. He's not that interesting. And in a movie that has a lot of magical demonic elements, he never displays any of them. You know, he's always a fucking dipshit, even though there are like demon bikers and psychic chemists and all this other shit. He's the dipshit at the end of the movie that's humping the wall because he's so wrapped up in being God.
He's kind of a unique character.
Oh, yeah.
He does not really match up with any other character in movies that I've seen. He has this aura of intimidation that is bought by everybody else, that is trying to be sold to you by the film, but then counteractively cut down by any scene that involves red.
He kind of reminds me of Little Gideon from Gravity Falls.
That's an astute observation.
I'm not familiar with Gravity Falls, but I agree.
He's basically like, his character plays like a charlatan preacher, like televangelist type.
Faith healer.
I'm on the wiki page. She's a fraudulent child psychic whose hunger for ultimate power motivates him to manipulate and intimidate others into giving him what he wants. That's something for those real Gravity Falls heads out there.
Shout out to them. One thing I want to mention before we talk about the best scene in the movie involving him.
Cheddar Goblin.
They released as like a joke his shitty folk album, and on the kind of B-side, there is just this insane 20-minute rant that talks about how he used to be a millionaire and he would just kill his parents to get their inheritance, and then would just basically buy things for people to get what he wanted, and just frittered all of his money away trying to become famous. And after that, he fucked up that. He started preying on kind of like weak people in churches, like presenting himself up as like a messiah figure for like dipshit hippies. And so he's gone from like buying influence to influencing the weak. So it definitely has that vibe to it 100%, which is why he thinks he's so good. Money propped that up, and then preying on the weak propped that up.
What's the difference? I hate rich people. That's my character bit. That's my personality.
It's all but a beautiful dream. A dream he's having right now. Won't you join us in that dream?
I want to talk about his fucking weird ass people he surrounds himself with. Like
let's do it. I love them.
I mentioned the fucking van, and this is the first time you get introduced to like his little cadre of freaks.
Brother Swan might be one of the more intimidating second men I've seen in movies.
He is 100% the only like competent member of his team,
and slavishly devoted.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the most competent, but also the most pathetic. Like this when he talks about let's sacrifice the fat one, and then Brother Swan's like, oh yeah, let's sacrifice that lard ass. I'm gonna make a joke, anything for you.
Oh, what a good idea. Oh, and he's just
He's doing that throughout the movie.
And there's like, okay, so the fat guy, we didn't mention him. He looks like a cherub. Like literally, like the blonde curly hair. He looks like straight out of a painting of a cherub. And he, like in the first part of the movie, when they come to, well, I don't want to get into the summoning of the bikers, because that's like, there's so much to dissect from what happens, but like, he also has a guy who has a mullet who constantly has his fucking mouth open.
In one of the most aggressively receding hairlines I've ever seen.
And then there are like two women who 100% are sort of like abused and take like a backseat in the power structure of the cult.
Well, one of them is kind of a little bit more matriarchal. No, down the sister Marlene, the older. Clearly, like one of the best scenes in the movie is when he's talking to Mandy, and you can look at the faces of each one of his dipshit members. The two kind of weird rednecky guys are just fucking zoned out. They don't give a shit. Sister Lucy, the younger woman, is also pretty zoned out, but like involved. And Sister Marlene is just fucking so jealous of Mandy. And Brother Swan is so happy to be there, and he's holding Jeremiah's album. And then like Jeremiah takes it from him to put it on. It's such a great kind of like mix of like Marlene and Swan are the two like, you know, real lieutenants, and the rest of them are just lost dipshits that are just taking too much LSD.
Well, I'm sorry for all this fuss and muss. But when I saw you on the road the other day, you called out to me silently, and I listened. Look at me. Look at me! Tell me, what do you see?
I see the Reaper fast approaching.
Well, let's talk about the thing that incites the violence, and then we'll get to the violence. Where Jeremiah Sand puts on his little spiel, where he tries to be as charming and compelling and manipulative as possible, and he puts on his dumb folk record. I think it's called like the. It's not. I can't remember.
Amulet of the Weeping Maze.
Oh, that's it. Oh, it's so fucking pretentious.
It sucks so much ass. Oh, and I wanted to just get into his motivation. So he glances her out of the window of the van that's when he first sees her, and he becomes fucking obsessed. I
would like to say this is one of them, those aforementioned extremely long shots of Jeremiah Sand and his obsessions.
Yeah, and he's depressed afterwards because he's like throwing a little temper tantrum. I can't have her, this random woman I saw on the road.
Exactly.
And that's when we get the whole sequence of him summoning the biker gang and everything. That's the inciting.
That's the first moment you get where you're just like, hang on, is magic real in this movie? Because he's like, do you have the horn of Abraxas? And he's just like, oh yes. And Brother Swan pulls it out of a bag, and we get like a close-up shot of this weird looking fucking volcanic rock thing. And it's just like there's a green strobe light going on and like spooky music as we see this thing get pulled out of the bag, and then it cuts to like the wide shot or the shot of both of them, and it's like the green strobe light's gone. And so you're just like, what is happening? It's like, do you know how to use it? And he's like, yes. And then we get to the scene where they drive out into the middle of the woods to try and summon the fucking demonic bikers.
Yeah, and it's like that artifact they have that green strobe light on it that's like very alien and otherworldly. And there's almost no other green in the movie except when he has these alien artifacts. And to me, it's like there's many different ways that you can interpret it, but it honestly feels to me like this is just these weird dipshit things that Jeremiah Sand made up. And there's just a lot of extra style added when you first see them, because we're looking through this of the lens of Mandy, who kind of like really takes all these myths and legends and dark fantasy things to heart.
Yeah, and I feel like that's pretty well expressed by the heavy metal animations, which are fantastically rendered, but can't really express that very well in an audio format. But I would like to say on the Horn of Abraxas, of his two movies, that's another theme that appears in his movie. There is an unexplained object. I say unexplained in every sense. All you know about the Horn of Abraxas is it's there, and it's somehow connected to the demon bikers. Well, in Beyond the Black Rainbow, there is a dagger, I believe, called the Devil's Teardrop. All you know about the dagger, it is special. You don't know how, but all you know is that there is some vague significance on this dagger. I think that's also reflective of Panos's animosity towards the sort of blind, like, occultism.
To get back to Mandy, so he has his little temper tantrum. The demon bikers are summoned and bring Mandy, and they get her super fucking high. They give her LSD. And then just to as part of the fucked up ritual, they have this giant wasp.
Horrifying.
That stings her, and it is insanely horrifying. And they're like, all right, now we're going to sell you to be part of this cult.
And that's like a sparrowhawk, I think it was. Like this fucking huge ass wasp that Brave Wilderness did getting stung by it. And it's apparently one of the most painful stings in the world. And it's still fucking moving when they pull it out of the preservative, which is weird.
Brined in something.
And then Jeremiah does his pitch. He plays the folk music, and he shows his dick. He's like, "Let's get ready to fuck now that I've convinced you."
Yeah, you get full on dick here. There's no clever censorship. You are seeing it.
I think the thing that most resonates with a lot of people is Mandy's just
a tarantula hawk. I got it wrong. Sorry.
No, it's fine. They're fucked up, and it's good I know.
They're fucking huge.
The tarantula hawk, which is bigger than Jeremiah's dick by far. And she just starts laughing at his lame, shitty penis.
Not just a laugh either. It's angry. It's haunting and belittling. It is specifically an emasculating laugh.
Shut up! 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 Don't you fucking look at me! Don't you fucking look at me! Don't look at me! Don't you fucking look at me!
And she knows what she's doing when she applies it. The first thing she says to him is I think the Reaper is coming. She knows that, what will probably happen to her if she laughs at his shitty dick to make him feel as bad as possible.
It's an amazing scene. He gets his dick out, and she starts laughing at him, and then he just trying to get it up by jacking off.
And then screaming at everybody to not look.
It's shut up! Don't look at me! Don't look at me! It's so funny. Just while his shitty music is playing in the background.
This scene is shot in the presentation of, hey, Mandy is currently tripping. Let's visually represent that for you. So everything is slowed down and has ghosting, and every scene is painfully suspended.
They really take their time with her discomfort and the way, and him trying to be benevolent to her.
It's seductive.
He's like, I'm so sorry for all the fuss and muss. Like, he thinks he's being seductive. And if you are like a total dumbass in 1983 and your brain's been burned out by drugs, maybe this works. You finally have somebody who's pretending to give a shit about you. But this is, he's finally found the person who's going to think this is the stupidest thing ever, because this is what the audience is thinking. You're just like, oh, Jesus, what the fuck is going to happen now? Are we going to be seeing some ugly shit in Mandy? And we do see some ugly shit, but she owns him so hard before he responds by burning her alive.
There's still a lot to be said about, to use a terrible trope codification of it, of fridging the female characters for the motivation of a male character. But there is no situation surrounding her death where Mandy was not staring death straight in the face and accepting it confidently. She was in complete control and she accepted it.
That's the criticism of the movie that I kind of, when I read reviews and stuff, that's the toughest to debate. It's even, if it's flipping it on its head, it's still a basic bitch revenge movie in some senses, and it's not a feminist movie. It's a movie, but obviously I think it's okay, and I think a lot of women responded to it. That's part of kind of why it works. It's interesting that it's kind of from this masculine perspective and still has the laughing at the dick moment with the knowledge it would be so emasculating.
That laughing scene, it stuck with me for weeks.
I think that you are completely correct in that more than other revenge films, it's actually about the person who is being avenged more so than it's the fucking name of the movie. It's the movie is about her. It has Nicolas Cage and his revenge, but the whole movie is about her. I think that's unusual for revenge films.
It's a point that was brought up earlier, but it's good to reiterate it. The film very clearly sets up that Red does not exist without Mandy.
Yeah, he definitely has personality death.
I'm not even talking about personality, because the hallucinations he has, even beyond her frankly horrific death scene, suggests that Mandy has fundamentally changed him in an extreme way. There is no Red without Mandy.
Another pearl wasted before swine.
Yeah. Take a good look, you worthless piece of human excrement. This is the tainted blade of the pale night, straight from the abyssal lair.
Before he kills her, they have him tied up with barbed wire in a shed. And he goes in to taunt him because he just got his dick laughed at. And they stab him with something they call the tainted blade of the pale night. The Horn of Abraxas and the tainted blade of the pale night are 100% D&D items you would pick up.
When I call it a story of a barbarian, I mean that in the most literal Dungeons and Dragons sense. Clearly influenced by Conan the Barbarian, which had a lot of Lovecraft stuff and horror in there too. Even the director says that he understands why this is a horror movie and there are horrifying things that happen to it, but he calls it a dark fantasy rock opera because to him it's a lot more about these artifacts and this weird otherworldly shit that happens and the metal aesthetic.
It's metal as fuck.
It's pretty metal. We're moving through this movie pretty slowly, but that's because it's there's a lot to get into in every single scene, with the visuals and the thematic qualities.
This is a movie I would describe as slow, but not a single scene is wasted.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I think even if the opening of the movie is languid, I don't think that there is a frame that should be cut. This simply because getting all of that character from Mandy beforehand, because it's so Mandy focused up until she dies, is important to inform the rest of the fantastical stuff when Red takes over. From the point he freaks out in the bathroom, he's going on his own journey.
That weird bathroom.
Nicolas Cage in his fucking underwear, just chugging some kind of alcohol. Is it Everclear?
Vodka. I'm pretty sure,
Vodka.
rubbing it all over his wounds, just in a very, it's a pretty fucking emotive scene, to be perfectly honest.
As much as I love Nicolas Cage, I think he, especially lately, there are movies where he doesn't feel like being emotive, really. He just kind of has a Nicolas Cage thing that he phones in, and I don't want to say he struggles to reach that kind of place, but it's like there's a man in physical, emotional anguish screaming. And it's hilarious to me that, when it's all said and done, the top 3 films on his highlight reel on In Memoriam is him going to be screaming in his tidy whities.
The best actor goes to Nicolas Cage for Mandy. And they just show that clip of him drinking alcohol in the bathroom.
I mean, it's an incredible scene, and I think that and the scene where Mandy laughs at his dick are the 2 scenes that anchor the movie emotionally for me, and I think for a lot of other people, just because it's you get a sense of where this movie is coming from. Very few other movies would dare to laugh at a dude's dick, no matter how pathetic, even though it should be commonplace. The director calls Nicolas Cage a golem, Golem, not the guy from Lord of the Rings, which in literally every single interview I read where the director said he was a golem, they thought he meant the guy from Lord of the Rings.
My precious Mandy.
I think Alton, you sold me pretty well on the Cheddar Goblin scene, because that just the unreality of it leading into the bathroom horror scene, leading into the badass forge scene.
The scene that just it makes so little sense if you consider it from from a realistic standpoint, where he just goes into he has a fucking blacksmith shop apparently, where he just makes this weird ass axe.
In the script, it is called The Beast, and whenever it's referenced to, it's he sets the beast on the ground.
Oh my god. Symbolically, Reese, what does that scene... Is it him building a new person in response to his old life being destroyed?
There's the 2 things. There's him getting the Reaper, which I think is a reference of you only get little flashes of it. He was some kind of bad human being before, and the Reaper represents that. And I think the beast, that sword, is this new darkness that is coming from him.
And the Reaper, by the way, is a crossbow, so in case anyone asks. So yeah, so I think Reese is 100% correct. It is implied that he used to be a bad dude, in the fact that he goes to his old army buddy, the guy in this olive drab jacket.
Bill Duke, who from Predator, a character actor that was very prevalent in the 80s in Predator and Commando.
Playing the same character. And he's playing the same character here, but what if he was fucked over by the VA and had to live out in the woods with a camper?
Because
Reagan.
Yeah, because...
Yeah.
I think what we can reveal now, the ultimate spoiler of Mandy, is that Ronald Reagan was the actual villain of the film.
Unironically, yes. I think there's a reason he turns off Ronald Reagan spiritual awakening speech at the start of the movie, because this is all about the fascist systems of control coming to hurt people who are just fucking trying to get by.
So what you hunting?
Jesus freaks.
I didn't know they were in season, man.
Yeah, well...
Just tell me, man.
They lit her on fire! They were weirdo hippie types. Whole bunch of them. Then there was a muscle. It didn't make any sense. They were bikers and gnarly psychos and... It's crazy evil.
part, my other answer to like the question of the sword he forges is honestly, he thought it was cool. He's interested only up until a point of what the themes and what things mean are. I think he's like, all right, you sat through the love stuff. Here's the sword. He's going to kill some people.
I don't think it's because he specifically thought it was cool. I think he made that because Mandy would have thought it was cool.
Exactly. That is 100% true. I agree with that.
Can we just say that, like, the bikers... Let's get back to the bikers, because he gets his fucking bow. He gets his fucking axe, and he just goes out. He gets exposition about who these guys were. His old army buddy tells that they used to work for an LSD running, gang. And then, apparently, they were using too much of their shipment, and they got the LSD manufacturer angry, so he gave them a bunch of really bad LSD. So that's sort of like the movie being like, okay, these aren't actually demons, these are just fucked up bikers, but they look like Cenobites.
I think that's more people trying to come up with an explanation, because the behaviors of the bikers, the way they act, like you saw how that one got hit by a car.
Mm-hmm.
There's clearly like something supernatural about them. I don't mean supernatural in the literalist sense. I mean, like, have you seen the original Assault on Precinct 13?
I've not.
Nope.
Assault on Precinct 13 is like this really tense thriller. It's one of the first movies directed by John Carpenter. The conceit of the movie is that this precinct is being assaulted from on all sides by this gang. However, the gang is like being presented more as like a force of nature rather than a group of people. These, at least initially, come off more like a force of nature, more like a supernatural entity than something that can just be dealt with. For one, that one is just always wet.
They're all wet. They're all like extremely wet boys.
They squish when they move.
Yeah.
That one is just, what if Pinhead, but more?
Pinhead, but like bolts instead of...
Then you got Butterball with the bladed
strap-on
dildo thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a strap-on or if it's just like grafted onto his pelvis.
It was like part of his like leather underwear.
I think part of what the purpose of that story is, there's value in every fantastical element in this movie of creating mystery around it. Are these demon bikers, or are these just LSD burnouts who have gotten way too into piercing? Certainly both sides, are kind of unbelievable. So what you create in your mind in the middle is what compels you and propels you forward.
But it's like both of you said, everything in this movie is incidental to the central narrative point of Mandy.
Yeah, exactly. There's a version of this reality where they look a whole lot more normal, and just because Mandy has been infused in the Nicolas Cage so deeply that he's just perceiving things on a different level. I think there's different ways you can go with it.
They're 100% Cenobites, but on motorcycles. It's legit.
Clive Barker would definitely be into this movie.
I mean, I agree that they've got that feel, and each one has this like metal demon aesthetic that is very like unified in their presentation. But I think that's kind of where they're coming from, and they're definitely presented to be demonic. Like at the end when you hear them talking, and he's like, "Do you worship death? Do you seek death?" And he's like, "I don't want to talk about that."
And they just sound fucked up. They sound like Darth Vader.
That scene is just so funny. The sort of line interactions are funny. It's pretty clearly present that Red is sort of losing his grip on what is actually important here. Quote unquote important, because all that matters to Red is lost.
Also, it shows when they summon them that they give them a jar full of this weird gray goop. And then when he gets captured by the bikers and fights his way out, he like finds a gray jar of like half drunk gray goop. He sniffs it and he like sticks like his pinky finger in to just like get a tiny taste. It cuts to like this vision of his mind going to hell where like his face melts off and explodes.
It's the heavy metal animation.
Yeah, it transports you to the heavy metal world.
That's supposedly the LSD that was given to them. And I think that's how he tracks down the chemist in the next scene, is that he sees that kind of radio tower power line thing. And we see that in the later scene when he goes to visit him. Hello, my gaggle of honking geese. We talked about Mandy for such a long time, I've decided to break it up into 2 episodes. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, check out part 2. And if you're not enjoying what you're listening to, I respect your totally wrong opinion that I hate. Alright, later.
These children cry for what they lack, but a child can learn a lot, and a child is taught the lessons well. The light that shines through everything, the light is truth.